Hello, welcome to another episode of Proof Beyond Reason. It's been a minute.
Yeah. It's been a few weeks.
It's been like 2 weeks, hasn't it?
Yep. Last episode we recorded a couple weeks ago. Audio was terrible, so we didn't really put a lot of promo behind it. But now we are back, probably louder than ever.
Yeah, it's good. They can hear us loud and
They can
clear.
hear J-Mo.
I hope.
For those out there in Germany and Japan hearing us.
There you go. Welcome.
Wow,
Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. It's your boy Mike the Baptist. We got J-Mo over here.
And of course, Geology.
What's going on with your book? What's going on? What's
Book
the
is
trend?
good. I still have to send you the link.
Yes, this
Yo,
dude.
It's been a minute.
He has zero promo skills with himself. Like, what's the problem?
That's true.
Yeah.
I might post it up on Facebook today.
Please.
Yeah, I don't know how I can get it because I'm off the grid. And I don't have
That's
the
true.
Facebook.
I'll
Yeah.
have to email it.
Yeah.
You have to give me your email.
Yeah, definitely.
So we'll do that. Today's episode talking about brainwashing.
Ooh, something I talk about frequently, or a lot actually. You guys have heard it for like the past 9-10 years, me talking about it.
Yeah, it's a serious thing. Funny enough, and we'll get into the specifics of what brainwashing is and the whole deal, blah blah blah. But when I was in college, in my marketing degree, they talked about subliminal messaging and the importance of subliminal messaging in marketing. So whether it's an advertisement or a movie where you have your Aquafina bottle just chilling, like here, and the camera does a quick, that little piece right there is the subliminal part, essentially in hopes that you saw that, and then at some point in the future it'll come back up
That
in your
product
memory.
placement.
Sometimes instantaneously. I remember me and my mom. I think it was like 1:00 in the morning, and this is horrible. But me and my mom were just watching TV, and a Taco Bell commercial came on, and we both, at the end of the commercial, we both look at each other and we're like, "Let's go to Taco Bell."
Dang.
And I was like, "Let's go."
Dang.
So
You remember when we used to go to Jay's and it used to be like Burger King? We play video games, and then it'd be like 1:00 in the morning, and we're like, we need to go get Burger King for whatever reason. Anyway, so the existence and the acceptance of a social conditioning, intentional whatever, it's present, and we're aware of that, and so that's kind of what we're going to talk about is brainwashing, different facets of it. Where do we find it? And how it impacts us, and what Scripture talks about in terms of brainwashing. So G, can you turn that down a little bit? The fan, fan seems to be giving a little bit. There you go. Much better. Relieves the interference to our listeners. Keeps our gain where it needs to be. You can keep it on just a little, like low. we don't want to die. We don't want to die. GG's trying to kill us. So brainwashing, what is it? What is brainwashing?
I did some research kind of like on what brainwashing was, and I got this from howstuffworks.com. It sounds so funny, but if you just type in brainwashing in Google, that's one of the sources that actually comes up. And it basically was talking about kind of like the word brainwashing and how they don't really kind of like that. They more think of more thought reform. So it's kind of like the study of brainwashing. So in the form of like psychology in that standpoint, brainwashing is referred in psychology as thought reform, right? And it falls into the sphere of social influence, right? I'm just gonna read it just like a paragraph of it's very more intense, but just something that kind of stood out to me. And so it says that because brainwashing is such an invasive form of influence, it requires the complete isolation and dependency of the subject, which is why you mostly hear of brainwashing occurring in prison camps or totalist cults, right? So it has to be complete, right? Influence, and it's very evasive, very, very strong, right? The agent or the brainwasher must have complete control over the target, the brainwashee, so that the sleep patterns, the eating, using of the bathroom, fulfillment of other basic human needs depends on the will of the brainwasher or the agent. So it's like a complete dependence, right? It says, in the brainwashing process, the agent systematically breaks down the target's identity to the point that it does not work anymore.
So your individual identity as the victim of brainwashing it is no more, because now the person doing the brainwashing has now taken ownership of your identity. Is that
So,
kind of where?
It reminds me
yeah.
of torture.
Yeah, well, it's in a form of like they use it. Some people use it as torture. Some people say you don't need it, but it's one of those things where the brainwasher does it over a period of time where attacks your identity, and then not only attacks it, but it gets to a point where you're complete that identity is completely demolished for the brainwasher to kind of build it up into the image or whatever they want to kind of pre-program you into.
I mean, that's very much the cult, right? That's the Jim Jones thing, right? Like where the people were just so much, they were so submitted to this individual that they had nothing of their own. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I find it really interesting, especially with the identity and stuff like that. So many people nowadays, I feel, struggle with identity. Even people in church, out church, it doesn't even matter. Just people in general, I feel like struggle a lot more, like whether it be a man and their role as a man, and now we got, homosexual and transgender and different things. The reason I say those things is because they're different things that we didn't think about 15, 20 years ago. We didn't think about changing the bathrooms at Target.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now, like this thing where people are more confused than ever. It's almost like on a massive scale. If brainwashing is a thing where they attack your identity for them to reprogram, then it kind of makes way more.
I mean, we have an episode that we talked about identity, but it was more on I think the social level and the peer pressure and so forth. But it didn't go into that. The brain, and I don't recall if it did or not. No, but if you want, check it out. Check out the previous episode, Brainwashing. Got to give that a quick plug in. But that is interesting. How does that form into from the social occult standpoint, like this whole thing that he's talking about?
You can have a prime example. I'm actually reading a book that my girlfriend gave me. It's about that. One of the actors that was on King of Queens, the one that played the wife. I don't know if you guys...
Leah Remini, right?
Yes.
The Tom Cruise religion. What is that?
Yeah, Scientology. She got into Scientology, and then she got out of Scientology, and she was saying all this stuff, saying that I might be throwing them under the bus or everything, but everyone needs to know. And then she laid down like what they actually do, how they brainwash you. So basically, they have you at the beginning. You're already lost completely. So like we talked about, or like you were saying, that people have like mass confusion. They don't know who they are. They have an identity. So what they like to plug in is a lot of positive things so that it gets people saying like, oh, look, I can follow this, or I can do a certain set of things to make my life better, find my purpose, find who I am, find my identity. But then as you're going, they show you that you can only follow that set rule or only follow that set law that they have established, that doctrine, and then they build it up that you can't share with anyone else, that everyone outside of it is not going to be considered like wise or whatever. And that's how they have it. So you build on levels, but then the more you go in, the more you learn, but the more you're excluding out from what you have already learned outside of it.
But how does it actually, like, how is it released into culture? How is it released into what we do on a day-to-day? Like
the cult in central or brainwashing?
The brainwashing, yeah. How does it fit into?
All right, so there's an article on CNN actually talked about it. It says 99% of televisions are in Western households. Like 99% of the whole population has a television set.
That's a lot.
And it says that
all U.S. population?
Yes, U.S. population.
Some people have 2, 3, 4 TVs.
And it says that basically people spend about 4 hours watching television. Now I don't watch television, so I can be considered outside that spectrum. Yeah. But
I maybe do 4 hours a week, maybe.
You add that in, or actually do all the multiplication and everything, and that's 9 years out of someone's life that's completely spent on watching television. Within that, they're using subliminal messaging, so product placement, like we talked about. They use little things like introducing something that you would never have seen years ago. Like I was watching a cartoon with my niece, and then I saw that there's actually a gay couple in one of the cartoons. I was just like, this would have never existed back in the days. But yet people like to throw out, but it was slowly starting to implement because you had Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy, a lot of people used to be like, Ren and Stimpy was a gay couple.
Oh, the Sesame Street thing.
Yep.
The two dudes. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but it was never implied.
It was
you know?
never
Right.
implied, yes.
That's
but
true.
nowadays we have, since all the things that's going on in the media, it's being talked about a lot. Now it's seen as the normal.
You know, it's funny because you say back in the day, but really we're talking about 5, maybe 10 years max. You know what I mean? Back in the day is 5 years ago.
That's true.
Or 10 years ago. Max.
I guess.
Well, I mean, it wasn't.
I mean,
they didn't have no cartoons like that 5 years ago.
But if you know, the people at this table weren't necessarily paying attention to that level at that time. Now it's more apparent because we've conditioned ourselves to look for those things.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, we didn't think about it. You know, now if I look at cartoons back then, I see things in cartoons now that I have my daughter, and I'm like, what in the world is this? You know, and I'll add my own commentary. I'll read books, and the books are very they're referencing something that I know it has a double meaning. But the child doesn't know. The movies will say comments, and it has like a double meaning for sure, but they don't know the difference. But the parents are, and so.
But yet the kids are also picking that up slowly, subconsciously.
Well, yeah, they're picking up what they understand it to be, but as soon as they understand the other way, it's a wrap. You know, that innocence is gone. You know, now they've become desensitized to a certain level, and now you need a new level to now eliminate, and then another level to eliminate, and another level to eliminate. So you're at the point where it's just there's no more. I think you had mentioned before something about Ravi saying that the wonderment is gone.
Yeah, it was actually a book that I shout out to Ravi Zacharias.
Ravi.
Yeah. There was actually a book that's called Recapture the Wonder. And it was like multiple things in that book that is beautiful. It's kind of like recapturing that innocence, even if it's lost. You know what I mean? So it's really, really good book.
Yeah, and so I think in some of the discussion that we had before, it was about the loss. You lose innocence because of all the things that kind of what we're talking about. And the overexposure of so much that we see out there of sexuality, of confusion, of the identity, of materialism, of violence, you know, to the degree that, you could walk down the street and see somebody on the floor bleeding and it not even occur to you that I need to help this person. Is just kind of we see it now. You see on World Star and stuff, dudes are recording somebody just getting pummeled. Instead of helping that person, putting your body at risk to help that individual so they're not going to get killed, you instead are going to record it so you can get a following. And someone in front of you is being murdered, physically being murdered, instead of just, going after it, taking the risk and, saving this person's life. That's where we are. That's where we are in the culture. So desensitized and things like that, like the YouTube, World Star, Instagram, and all that. It's eroding that wonderment. It's eroding the innocence. It's eroding the moral framework that we have to do what is right. And now, because of the relativity, what is right? You know what I'm saying? Like, what this is entertaining. I'm gonna get more followers. For me, this is right. For the person receiving that beating, it's not fun. It's not right. So now there's a relative thing going on there that makes it risky, and so I think that's all part of this or whatever. But
yeah, I want to actually finish
this
because it's only like 2 more sentences, it's gonna kind of bring it a little more to what we're saying. So it was an attack on the identity, right?
Yeah.
And so it says this: regardless of whatever definition you use, many experts believe that under the ideal brainwashing conditions, the effects of the process are mostly often short-term. The brainwashing victim's old identity is not, in fact, eradicated or removed by the process of brainwashing, but instead it is hiding. It says, And once the new identity stops being reinforced, the person's old attitudes and beliefs will start to return. So it has to be continually fed. It has to be continually spoken to and worked on. And it was just kind of reminds me like what G was talking about, even with the statistics of 4 hours a day. That's just TV. That's not including cell phone. Because, we don't watch TV anymore, but it's always replaced. Now we're on Netflix on our phone for 10 hours. So we don't watch TV like we used to, but now we're on our phones. And so it's like, okay, if this brainwashing, think about this. If this brainwashing has to be continual for it to work, and it's almost like the social norms of everybody else, like it's like this outside pressure of other people being brainwashed. So the moment that you want to be off the grid, is this, like you're attacked. You're made fun of.
Yep.
Right?
I've had that a lot. Mike occasionally would see me do that occasionally, but it's because I had to take a break because I couldn't take anything, like all of the stuff that people were going through on social media, television, all that. I just had to cut it off. So I would typically just tell people, all right, I'm done with Facebook, I'm done with Instagram. So I would completely cut everything off. The moment someone approached me and said, hey, what's your Facebook? And I would be like, oh, I don't have a Facebook. They look at you in a completely different way. And I'm always like over here just like, all right, you could just contact me, text me or something. They're like, no, I usually go on Facebook. I'm usually there for a while, and then I'll talk to you or send you a message there. But yet you have this whole highlight reel and scope of how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to have social media. And yet when you actually don't have it, you're just seen as a normal individual that's like losing his mind or something.
Yeah. So what does it look like in when we talk about social media, like what does it actually look like? So the social conditioning, the brainwash, what does it actually look like?
We actually talked about it in Identity episode where you're seeing this glamorous lifestyle where you show all your highlight reels basically. So you have your best moments, your best pictures, your best quotes, statuses, whatever you want to call it. You can even start promoting. It's basically like a self-promotion of yourself. That's how social media has gone, and it's not going to die anytime soon. So automatically, if you could start from, say, you're a high school student who doesn't have social media, you're thrown into this world where you see people posting every 20 seconds. So from the start, you're just seen as a normal average Joe. And then you start seeing that to be known, you have to get likes. You have to get follows. So you start doing stuff. You start posting a picture. You start tagging. You see that doesn't work. So you do what you did. I mean, what you were talking about. You amp up the level. So then you start doing crazy videos. When there was like that whole planking phase. People started planking in all the weird spots. Like doing crazy things, getting injured. So then
there was one where they were lighting themselves up. Did you see that phase when they were lighting themselves up in the bathroom, in the bathtub?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
On fire. That was like what, like 4 years ago or something. But there's always something new, like, right?
There's always something new, and you could see an example of that in the ice bucket challenge. Before it wasn't a. I mean, they were doing it for
ALS.
ALS, yes. But then you had people who weren't doing it for ALS. They just wanted it for attention. So they were being brainwashed into the idea that, oh, look, I'm doing this, so it's going to be a positive way, or I'm donating in a way or supporting it. But yet you're just doing it just to see that you're doing it, so you're tagging another individual. It's just like, oh, yeah, tag 10 more people to do this. And then they would continue this trend, but yet they lost support of what it actually was.
Yeah, I mean, some people do it because they make money off of social media. Yep. So even girls are, getting plastic surgery or doing a lot of augmentation with their, lips and whatever for the purposes of getting the following so that they can do the sponsorship, so that they can go in front of the camera and say, hey, shout out to so-and-so, and that sponsor will pay them, and that's how they make a living. And they're okay with doing that. It's just, to me, it's funny. It's just, it's hilarious because the look is the same. You can tell there's a certain look, there's a certain doctor they'll go to because there's a certain appeal to the camera that you can get. So there's a certain structure you have to get in your face so that your camera can register well with the camera, and it's clear that it's not your face.
Yep.
It's someone else's face.
You
It's
have
so
to get
it's
the same equipment too that certain people have.
So
like
when
the
you see
lighting.
them walking around in the mall, you're like, yo, this person's clearly like not them.
It's always the same, right?
Yes.
The lip injections,
Yes.
the certain waistline,
Yes.
everything. But they start becoming replicas,
correct,
right?
Yep.
and it almost has to be because you
That's
you,
the ideal of beauty.
correct,
Almost. That's
correct.
changed.
It's been implanted in you that I'm not pretty enough. I have to take supplements to make my body a certain way. I have to do surgery to make my body a certain way. And it's one thing if you want to live a healthy lifestyle and you're putting into practice norms and disciplines in order to make that come to fruition. It's another thing when you're doing it because of popularity, of opinion, of whatever. Then there's a disconnect. And when you start to see what you're being fed, so if or you're feeding yourself, if that's your influence, then yeah, if you're spending the 5-6 hours watching whatever that shows you how ugly you are, then yeah, of course you're going to want to do those things because now you want to measure up to whoever this person or these group of people are telling you. And I think part of that is, and it's not to blame this group of people, but the Keeping Up with the Kardashians, I think had a huge impact on culture because of the way they dressed, the way they looked, very attractive and all that stuff. But after time, people wanted to become them. They lusted because the show was entertaining. Now you no longer are entertained by the show, by the show's humor and what's going on in their life. Now you want to be them because you're like, they're the standard of beauty. They have all the attention. They have all the money. How do I become them? And we're guilty of it. Actually, I texted John earlier. I was like, I remember when I was younger, I was praying to God. I was like, make me 6'4" so I can be in the NBA.
That was me.
Yeah, we're both of us, right? We all want to be, in the NBA. And, I think I forgot to ask God for the skills to be in the NBA because that was important.
I already had the skills.
I already had the skills. You need the height. But it was that longing, that lust for that position, and it was a magnified lifestyle that I thought was the answer to my problems. And so the prayer of my heart was something that was unnatural to me, but it also reflected what I was feeding myself. I was not content with my height, my weight, my strengths that God gave me. Instead, I lusted after the strengths of someone else, and
it's almost like society brainwashing you
correct.
to say you're inferior.
Yes. If you don't make this amount of money, you're inferior. Yes. If you don't have this kind of house, if you don't have this many children, and even now where society is like, well, don't have kids. Put it off. Don't have kids. Kids is a burden. Well, then you put off having kids, and then if you have a kid, you're seen as, oh, we can't hang out with you anymore. Then you have a kid, and now you're not that cool because you need to have 2, 3, 4 kids. Like, it's just so strange.
Like keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah,
almost.
it is so strange. Like, just everybody having this other expectation of you.
Okay, so I want to tell you, like, we normally don't do news articles, but I every single morning at work, the first thing I do is I put in the news, right? And there was actually this article that I read like a couple days ago. There was this woman who was traveling. She was an not Instagram model, but I guess just an Instagram personality.
She was a star, maybe because she had so many followers.
Yeah. 24 years old. Kind of like you were saying, that same look.
Yeah.
Loved the attention, everything. So anyways, she was known for going to different exotic places and taking pictures, going on vacations, living the rich lifestyle, right? Mm-hmm. So she goes on a cruise from her country to Australia, but I guess there was a deal where she could have made $100,000 by going on this cruise, but there so happened to be cocaine on the ship. So she right now knew that there was cocaine, but in Australia they sentenced her to the maximum of 8 years in prison. Right now, because she wanted to keep it. And then her defense was she got caught up in that lifestyle of the Instagram, and she says that she was addicted to the followers, addicted to the likes.
But isn't it funny because all of them say that once they reach that certain point of fame, I got caught up in the lifestyle. Like they all say it, like all the musicians or something like that. They're like, "Oh, I got caught up," and then I have to like backtrack, and then they usually you see them go to rehab or something. They're like, "Oh no, I have to like reform," and yet it reminds me because you said thought reform is the process that they actually go for.
Yeah. I listened to Hot 97 on YouTube. Just keep up with the culture, see what's happening and stuff. And they were talking about how some of these Instagram stars are getting record deals. So now you're not getting record deal because you have talent. You're getting record deal because you have a following. For whatever reason, usually the girl who's putting out booty shots and doesn't care, showing everything, and because you have a following, now they're offering you a record deal. So your record deal is not because you have talent. Your record deal now is someone will write for you, someone will produce for you, someone will tell you exactly what to do, what to wear. They'll make you up from head to toe. They'll change your look. They'll give you all the money you need, or all the support you need, because now they're going to earn money off of you because you have millions of followers.
But it kind of goes to show you the shifting of influence. So back in the day, 15, 20 years ago, actually yesterday, I watched this show on YouTube. This like a hot wing show. Like this guy interviews like guests, and they eat like progressively hotter wings. Like I like it because they're like they start reacting,
sweating,
and stuff.
bleeding through their
But
nose.
I think I know what you're talking about.
yeah, so it's really popular. So yesterday I just watched a video, and it was a supermodel, Tyra Banks. I don't know, you guys remember Tyra Banks?
I remember Tyra
right? So she's considered like, I guess, one of the most famous supermodels,
Yeah,
not
she
regular
is.
models,
Yeah.
like supermodel, America Top Model. She was a she
was,
created
like,
that
one year-
show.
yeah.
So she's extremely popular. Had a show for years, right? She's on the show, and one of the questions that the guy asked her was like about Victoria's Secret. So she was known for being like the top angel or whatever. They would put like the best wings, or I don't know, like in the Victoria's show, right? And she says back in the day when it was her time, and we're talking only 10 years, she says, "Oh, I made a lot of money." She says now they don't make anything. She says the Instagram models, she says, I found some of the contestants from the America's Top Model on Instagram. She says now Instagram models are making millions, and Victoria's Secret, things of her craft 10, 15 years ago is no longer. They still have it because of the prestige, but they pay them nothing. So I started thinking about this. It's like, why, back in marketing, right? Why would I pay LeBron James $100 million before he even gets into the NBA? Nike did that. Before he even played one game in the NBA, Nike spent $100 million for him to be like, and the word is influence. That's why they pay. And so now we can kind of see, you can always see the trends, right? So now you see Instagram, you've seen social media being, that's kind of what you were saying. Like, that's the number one form of influence.
The cost of customer acquisition to get, if someone has like 1 million followers, 2 million followers, the cost of that customer acquisition is going to cost that organization X number of dollars, right? So let's say it's going to cost them $7, $8, $9 million or more to acquire that many customers. Well, this person has done it for no cost on the part of them. So now they can go up to this person and say, man, to get those customers, it would cost us $7 million, $8 million. So now we'll go to them and we'll just offer them a deal. We're paying them almost nothing to what we would have paid if we had to hustle. But for them, making them a millionaire all overnight. So I'll make you a millionaire. I'll make you famous because now just to acquire those customers, that's what I needed. But to be profitable, we have to spend more money to get return business and so forth. So, I mean, once we have your customer base, we have them. And now we just need to make sure they're engaged. So once we engage your client, the customers that you have already, we're all going to make a lot of money. So we're going to put the money up front. You're the recipient of a percentage we're still making the dollars, but we didn't have to go through the time period. See, time is money. Yep. So they had to go through the time of spending that much money. Here, they get it in a heartbeat if they find the right person who already has the following. The person who had to put in the work was that individual. And now, whatever happened, bam, here it goes. So, so it's interesting. You know what I'm saying? It's an interesting time we're living in. But anyway, back to the brainwashing. So how does this even tie into brainwashing?
I mean, you were talking about it just recently. It all ties into brainwashing because you guys were talking about him, making fun of him in the beginning. Tekashi 6ix9ine,
yeah,
whatever. He's being pushed now a lot.
Yeah, he's heavy being pushed.
You see that? That's all the trap music scene. I mean, you said it right there, and when you were reading, repetition is a constant thing. We were talking about this off recording, like one of the nights where we were saying how music nowadays is like a trance. So they'll repeat a chorus over and over and over again, and yet you're just like mesmerized. And that's like something you hear as a kid. I think you were the one that was saying it, that a kid's nursery rhyme is basically repetition. So they have you in like this trance-like state, and then they can just push in whatever agenda they have. So whatever is cool that they're wearing now, so that the 90s are back, you have like everyone starts shifting. So the whole culture is now like 90s is back. They like this trap music. They like anything, but yet you play, say for example, a 90s like rap CD or something, and they'll be like, "Oh, what's that? That's trash." And you're just like, "What is that?" That it made hip hop. And then nowadays you put on like whatever track on the radio, and it's just like blah 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 blah, and it's just like they could say that and put a catchy beat, and the people.
That's the part. It's the beat. There was a conference Brian Newman had, and he was quoting research from Oxford University, Harvard, Stanford. You know, you name it. He was quoting it, and he talks about different benefits of music, but when it comes to the beat, just the rhythm of it. He says music can help patients recover faster after surgery because it increases oxygen and blood flow to the brain. It increases a sense of hearing, which is linked to emotions and memories. And it can even help prevent Alzheimer's disease if you play an instrument. So if you play an instrument, it can help prevent that. Some of the spiritual influences of rhythm music, kind of what G's talking about. Rhythm and drum beats place the listener into an altered state of mind as brain frequencies capture sound to react distinctly to changes in tempo, pitch, and bass as it is delivered from the sensors in the ear. So it's like if you work out, you know, if you listen to a song that's like, you know, inspirational rocky track, suddenly you just want to like, you just become like inspired to do more because it's helping to influence those emotions. In tribal rituals, drum beats are used to place people into hypnosis. So they'll actually do rituals and to control your heartbeat and to control your emotions. In an altered state of mind, a person is susceptible to subliminal messaging. Yep. But he talks about this specifically. He says the 5 senses, smell, taste, touch, sight, and sound. Our senses tap into our emotions, desires, and memories and decision-making. As people, we are influenced through these avenues. Our brains store information we obtain from our senses for the rest of our lives. The more garbage we store, the more filthy we become.
Oof. Wow.
So in him saying those things and him kind of going through the research and all that, the subliminal, the brainwashing piece that we have in music today, and I mean, if you just don't play the beat and you read the lyrics to
sex, drugs, money, and girls.
I mean, it's worse than that. Like, you know,
it's gotten even worse.
To Tekashi 6ix9ine, if you just read the lyrics, you're just like, this is.
There's one of them is about just guns.
Yeah, no, it's like there's no. I mean, I'm not getting smarter off of this thing.
And
like,
if you notice, they don't even make sense. Like the title it's like paper hats.
Yeah,
it's like like
paper hats.
Yeah, but it has no relevance to the track. Like,
but nor is there any substance to the music. There's no substance, but it's gonna get you to feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. It's gonna get you to think a certain way. It's gonna get you to want to engage in a certain behavior, right? Yeah. So.
Or prevent you from a certain behavior.
So when I was listening to one of the tracks, and I was watching the music video, but I'm looking at the track. In my lens, I can make the difference and say, you know what, this is garbage, and I'm not going to really pay much attention to it. But after I watched it a few times, it promotes a gang culture, and knowing a little bit about gang culture, man, I just started to be like, wow, this is pretty dope, right? Suddenly, I am in this trance of being attracted to that gang culture, like it's calling me, and I'm like, wow, that is very weird that I feel that way. And to the point where I was starting to play these tracks again and again and again and again, and then I showed my wife, I was like, look at this trash. And I played it. She was like, "Oh, what are you doing, dude? Like, this is so bad. And not even just artistically, it's just terrible." And I didn't realize for the moment, because you start to what is the consistency that you're letting it hit you, hit, and you're feeding yourself this. Suddenly, like, I just aligned myself with the message of what this person is saying. Like, I'm good with what they're saying. And you know what I'm saying? Like, suddenly I'm walking into work, like, ready to just be like, let somebody say something. You know what I'm saying? Like, throw my flags up or whatever. Like, it's crazy.
I think I mentioned in a like, not the last one, but the one before. But I said something in the lines of whatever, like, from the like the period of your life, like the type of music that you listen to from like 6 to like 14 or whatever, or like that age bracket, is kind of what you're always gonna be like open to. You know, so that particular thing spoke to, like, it's easier for that. But if it was a rock song, or, you know, some different style of music, like a country song that was saying the exact same stuff,
right,
you wouldn't have be predisposed to it, you know. So but it goes to show you how deep this brainwashing thing is. It's subconscious on another level, that even if you didn't want to, you're already drawn to it.
Or it's something even this one is a kind of touchy subject, but with the recent things that have been happening, all the gun controls and all that stuff, you have, like, I was talking to a good friend of mine through a forum, and he was stating, mind you, he's like a 70-year-old black guy. He's been through the times, but he was saying it's funny how people nowadays are like posting stuff on Facebook, like, and like have better gun control, and yet you see those same people promoting songs nowadays that just talk blatantly about guns, blatantly about killing your brother, blatantly about like like promoting like don't let the white man put me down, still throwing racial like context through everything, and yet they are saying to stop racism. And yet you have all these like kids keep saying they want change, but don't want change at all. And he was just saying all this to me, and I was just like, you have a point, because that's the truth that you see nowadays. People are so brainwashed into listening to these music, like the music nowadays, and that's when you have people saying like, oh, what is the video games like leading to the kids? Is it leading us to more violence? Or you have people saying, no, it's just, it matters of the maturity of the person. But necessarily, you have this continuous thing keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
Depends on the quantity that you, like, if you play a video game for 1 hour, maybe once a month, I don't think it's going to have the same effect if that same 14-year-old is playing that same game for 6 hours a night every single day.
You have a 14-year-old playing Call of Duty, and then he wants to go to war.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, but
there's always going to be the extremes, you know.
Yeah, but I think so. We did allude to it a number of times already, but what is the purpose of brainwashing? So we talked about it here. So what is the benefit? We get the process. So, you know, the person who's doing the brainwashing extracts this person's identity and all that. You know, now they're in control. But like, why? Like, what's the point?
It's whatever the brainwasher wants to program the brainwasher.
But from that higher level standpoint, from that, you know,
from like a culture standpoint, or like
corporations want more people to buy food. So
Coca-Cola wants it, right? Like
I have actually, let me see. I have actually some data. So you have a study that counted more than 200 junk food ads during 4 hours of cartoons on television Saturday morning by itself. You have the news reports that it says any special news report that accompanies any other ad is more tangible and seems and lesser chance of people questioning it because it's accurate, just because it says like daily news. And we talked about it in the fake news episode as well. And that just creates a whole fear-mongering like sense to the person so that they can push on towards war or something like that.
Like we talk about brainwashing in the sense that like even with the music, it's meant to create like an atmosphere or keep you from like achieving or something like that. Like whatever the intent of the brainwasher is, it clearly doesn't want you to be listening to classical music and learning how to do complex tax accounting. You know what I mean?
It goes
like
back to
it wants to keep you debased for a reason. And even that, I read an article today and on one of the news things, and it was interesting to me. My news is off the place, like all over the place. But it was interesting to me, like people that receive food stamps.
Yeah.
It was basically the top 10 things that they buy, and I was like, the number one thing was soda, and I was like, man, like. Could it just be like, I don't want to just put prejudice on if anybody's on like, food stamps or anything, that they're just buying soda. But that was the number one thing by a landslide, like 5% more like than everybody else, But it kind of goes to show you this, like, I don't know why. Like if you ever go drive in the hood, there's always a McDonald's. There's always the worst types of food, Philly cheesesteak, everything all over that place. You go to the nice neighborhood, there's a Whole Foods,
Chick-fil-A somewhere,
Chick-fil-A, all natural, Jason's Deli, if you like that.
Well, I mean, yeah,
you know what
true.
I mean.
Well,
so it's like,
yeah, but from and I'll be the person defending the corporations here, right? But what is the price point of the food, and who is the demographic they're trying to reach? They're trying to reach the people who can only afford the dollar menu. They're not going to put, they still do, but of course I'm going to place a McDonald's where I have a cheaper menu in a neighborhood where I know that the per capita income is lower, and I'm going to put a Whole Foods in an area where I'm not going to put a Whole Foods in the middle of the hood.
Yeah,
like,
but
it doesn't make sense
also,
from a spending standpoint.
So look, you're from New York, I'm from Chicago, right?
New York's great.
Chicago's even better. No, I'm joking. No, I love.
Yeah,
I've been to New York too.
Yeah, who cares?
I've been to New York and I was overwhelmed. And
I gotta go to Chicago.
I was like, New York is massive. I
gotta go to Chicago.
But when you go in the hood, tell me if this is not true or not.
I'll tell you.
There's
true.
nothing but like liquor stores all over the
Of course,
place.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And then not only liquor stores, but then there's pornography stand. Like I don't know why. There's not like that much here in Florida, but in Chicago and stuff, when you go in the hood.
No, I had to make a pit stop. I think I was coming to one of our recording sessions, and I had to stop to get something. I think it was for the episode or whatever. So I pulled in real quick. I think I was getting poster board because we were having our meeting. And so I pull in there, I get poster board, I get markers, and as you're waiting in line, like this is the dollar store, bro. There's pregnancy tests. So instead of having, when you go to like Publix or something, you have like Band-Aids and you have some last items that they pick up. Maybe you have like a magazine or something before you hit the stand. They had pregnancy tests. Like, what are they saying? Right? What is the message there? What are the condoms and stuff? Like, what is that? That's so crazy to me. I was like, yo, I was dumbfounded that would be an item that as you're leaving the store, let me go ahead and pick up a pregnancy test while I'm about to leave the store. Not chips, a pregnancy test for $1.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So it kind of goes back to my last point.
Yeah.
Like, and I do agree with what you were saying about the McDonald's, that the price point in marketing, that makes sense. What doesn't make sense is that liquor and things like that is at a higher price point. You know what I mean? There's no reason for it to do, unless it was a pre-brainwashing thing where they want to have you debased. They want to have you operating on a level. They don't want you to be listening to classical music, thinking about tax accounting. They don't want you to be, you know what I mean? So
could be.
It could be.
No, it absolutely
could be.
I mean, people say that the earliest form of brainwashing was during the propaganda era, 1950s, but it was actually during the Roman times where you had breads and circuses. The famous quote, "Feed them bread and circuses," where it was what the Romans did so that people didn't see the politics of the time of Caesar. They would just give them free bread And the circuses was all the gladiator fights, so they kept the
Wow.
masses entertained. So they never knew really what was going on with politics.
That's crazy.
They didn't know what was going on with the religion at the time during the whole Christian martyrdom and all that. So they were just entertained. And yet we
Distraction.
come here to modern day America where we're so entertained and we're just always on our phones, always on television, that we don't know what's going on half the time. So when we're actually having a quote unquote political debate on Facebook, like half the people don't know their facts.
Well, half the people can't think for themselves to say, I need to do my research. Let's have an open discussion.
It's all opinions.
And words of parrots. It's repeating what somebody else said instead of stopping, looking at your experience, talking to your neighbors, figuring things out. It's exactly boom, boom, boom. What was on the media the other day, and that's what you hit people off with. It is something that is concerning, this topic, because it's everywhere, and we were talking about it earlier, that the church runs the risk of being accused of engaging in brainwashing activities, particularly when you talk about worship. Music or when music is played, right? I'm a firm believer that the music is a musical form of worship. It is not in and of itself worship on its own. It is a form of worship. We worship with our lives. We worship in truth. We worship in spirit, and we can run the risk of having the songs where, you have the preacher preaching, and then, to get the climactic moment, the guy's playing the piano in the background, or as he's ending the message, the guy's playing the piano, like,
or when he's asking for money.
Yeah, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, suddenly you're like in this different mood. It sets you in a different mood, right? When the guy's preaching and he's hitting you off, boom, 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 with facts and all this stuff, but then as he's ending the message and he's going to do a calling, if that's the type of church you go to where they do a calling, suddenly the musician, he's up there and he's playing the piano, and then it just puts you in this serenity, and then the preacher starts to talk in a different tone, and then it sets the mood, and then the listeners who are listening to me now, as I change the tone of how I speak, it just changes the dynamic that's in your brain. It can become a form of brainwashing, whether it's intentional or not. There is something to changing the atmosphere using music, using tone of voice, using those kinds of things. And even when you talk about the music, the worship music, and the repetition of certain phrases, and just having over and over and that's all you got for like 8 minutes straight. Boom, 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 boom. Suddenly at the end of like 7.5 minutes, people start breaking out into tears. Is that because they've made this connection with God, and the Spirit is really moving, or they've gone into this place where they're in a trance? And I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm questioning that.
Because sometimes you see that, where you see people, they'll say they're filled with spirits, and then they'll start dancing and things like that. But it's because they've seen things before, so they're brainwashed to the notion that just because they hear it, or the preacher starts speaking in a different tone, they automatically have to act like that.
Potentially, right? Exactly. And the Bible does it does encourage us and wants us to sing spiritual hymns and songs to each other and to God, so that we have an alignment with Him. And that's part of us renewing our mind, is to be in that place where we are, instead of feeding ourselves the things that are temporary, that are of this world, that are evil, that are causing us to live as enemies of God. Instead, we should be doing activities and feeding ourselves and being repetitious in things that will cause us to want to glorify and delight God. Particularly if you think about in Book of Philippians, where Paul is saying, think about things that are pure and admirable, things that are excellent and worthy of praise. In these things, meditate on these things. That means it's a constant reminder. It's a constant thing where it's repetitious. So you're almost brainwashing yourself, but cleansing your mind. If we're talking about the difference between a life of sin and obscurity and desensitization and conditioning versus a life that is pulling you from that to live a life of purity, to live a free life in God, in Christ, if that's really what's happening, then we're also doing the same activities on this side. So it's a very interesting thing, because is brainwashing a bad thing if it's this way versus that way?
I mean, not all brainwashing is a bad thing, because we have an example of modern day schools where it's a constant repetition of what the things you learn. The teacher repeats something.
That's how you learn.
You learn it. Yeah. But the thing is, they repeat it to a point, but you also have to apply it. That's the thing that people lose as well.
I want to go back to this. I didn't even have it highlighted, but it is above the thing, and it kind of goes into what we're talking about. Back to howstuffworks.com.
Howstuffworks.com, shout out.
Well, it says this. While most psychologists believe that brainwashing is possible under the right conditions, some see it as improbable, or at least as less severe form of influence than the media portrays it to be, right? It says some definitions of brainwash require the presence of a threat of physical harm, and under these conditions, most extremist cults do not practice true brainwashing in that definition. Then it says, since they typically do not use physical abuse recruits, other definitions rely on non-physical coercion to control. And it's kind of like whatever the definition is, you know what I mean? So I feel like us as humans, God made us to learn that way. I don't know about you, but when I learn, I repeat it over and over, and it goes into my, like, if I want to memorize something, I'll repeat it over and over.
You have to do a continuous habit for 6 weeks to learn it.
Yeah, and so I think God, knowing this, you know, he tells us in his word to renew our minds.
Yes.
Every single day.
Yes.
Not every other day. Every single day.
Yes.
And the reason is because we're so being polluted every single day that it takes the continual renewing for us to even think properly. And back to kind of like what you were talking of vain repetition, it brings me to Matthew chapter 6, verse 6 and 7. It says this. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Verse 7. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like the pagans, right? For they think they will be heard because of their many words. So it's kind of like these people that don't know God are the ones that are, oh, God.
Yeah, other translations actually say, do not pray in repetition.
In repetition. Yeah. So it's almost like they think that vain repetition is going to get their voice heard. No, it's not.
Yeah.
The heart.
The definition of vain is empty. And so those are empty words that are being exercised because you think you're making a connection with God, but he knows your heart. He knows who you are. He wants the intimacy with you and not so much the vain words that are coming out, you know. So it's good point that you bring up there.
With all that being said, this is a hypothetical question. What would happen if, like, let's say hypothetically, I'm going to some place, a school or a church or something like that, where I do see that, and then I'm like, whoa, like I get this aha moment, and then I'm like, you know what, I'm going to stand out and go against, or I'm going to go based on what the Word of God says, or I'm going to go on this 99% of the time. I don't want to give percentage because I don't know, but a lot of times, a lot of times, like those people will probably persecute you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's like one of those things, like, we live in a society where everyone's brainwashed. So the moment that you get unplugged from the matrix, now you're that one. You're that one. You know what I mean? Yeah. Is that everybody goes to attack, and then it's like, I mean, people that are brainwashed. People who are brainwashed. You know what I mean? And then it's kind of like this. So it's kind of like if I'm moving money or something like that. If I give you $1, but if I teach you to make $1, or I tell you to go tell someone to make $1, it becomes exponential growth, right? Mm-hmm. It becomes like this pyramid, and that's what those pyramid schemes are, right? So if I brainwash just Gio, but But if I train Gio, so brainwash him in such a way that he's friends with you, Mike, but then he's brainwashing you, and then you continue, it's exponential growth of brainwashing. So now we have, and then what happens when that one person's like, yo, I don't even think I want to work in this building. Yeah, now all the brainwashing pyramid is going against that one. That's the society we kind of live in right now.
And I raised that question because that's exactly what it is. It's there's no, that's just what we have. Is a society of brainwashing. It's a culture of brainwashing. It is a world in which you will be fed, you will be pulled away. And it kind of goes back to what we talked about in the Babylon episode, where if you have truth on one side, if the enemy is present, he's going to have to create a replica to pull you in the other direction. So if you have things like Romans 12:2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what is God's will and his good, pleasing, perfect will. And so there is going to be you needing to wrestle with or make a decision as to what you're going to submit to. Are we going to submit to the pressures of the world and the subliminals and what the culture wants us to go in the direction of the occult? And are we going in that direction?
Or New Age, right?
Or are we in a place where God has revealed himself to us by his grace and we are now choosing to pursue him? As it tells us there, it tells us to renew our mind. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I've revealed myself to you. You know who I am. Now it's on you to take this and make it your, and put your stamp on it. Your relationship with me. Renew, study your word, get in prayer, sing songs to me. Because the world is going to take you in the other direction. The world's going to tell you you're hideous, you have no value, you're dumb. You need to do things this way. If you don't do them this way, you're going to get rejected, and so on and so on and so on, to the point where next thing you know, you had plastic surgery, you cut off your nuts, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're just like, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know. I lost my identity, and now my master is nowhere to be found. He's the one who changed me to be this product of whatever I am, in debt, having animosity with my family, relationship woes, everything. And now I'm in this place where I'm looking for my master for comfort, and he is not present because he was never there for your best intention. He was there for his glory. And that master is Satan. Right? He's there for his benefit, not yours. So when you go to look for something, you then turn to another idol. You try to find another idol, another replacement, because you're empty. You're lost. God, the living God, he is the one that is providing a new way. He's given us a new way. It's actually the old way. It's the way it's always should have been. It is the original way. It's the true way, where he presents to us and says, look, you've been duped. And I have an original way. I have the way that I formed you, that I created you to be. The way that I'm going to show you has never changed. It's always been consistent. When you seek, you shall find. When you knock, the door shall be open. I'm here for you. I didn't just make the world and let it run like a clock the way other worldviews will say. No, I've made the world, you've ruined it, but I'm still here to have an intimate relationship with you. When you seek me, I'm here. I'm here to guide you, to show you, to love you, to transform you into the image of Jesus. Talks about in Romans 8. That's the objective. Those who were called, are going to be transformed into the image of Christ, because I'm in your life. And so that's the new way. That new way to us, the original way, the way it's always been the original way to God. That's the brainwashing that is the good brainwashing. It is a brainwashing that we need to cleanse our minds from this spiritual decay and this burden of this world that is taking us in a million different directions. And now he's putting us in the original place. And he says, you tried all of the buffet and you got sick. Now here's the real food, non-GMO, that you should be. This is where you should be at. This is your harvest. Enjoy it because it's real freedom. And you know, I think when we try to fool ourselves with creating all these different atmospheres to create false fire in the presence of God, his truth is in his word. His promises are in his word. We don't have to create something that's not there. We don't have to give false promises. We don't have to make false fire. We don't have to tap into fake emotions. Mm-hmm. The disciples didn't have to do that. Mm-hmm. They spoke truth into people's lives. They looked, they compared, they said, you're doing this. Here's your conviction. Jesus went straight to the heart. He's like, any of these dudes your husband? She's like, no.
You got 5.
Yeah, you got 5. None of them are your men. You know what I'm saying? Like, repent, follow me. You know what I'm saying? Like touching at the heart of the issue. That was freedom. That was real brainwashing, but it's the cleansing to say you were duped. Come. I'm here. Come back.
But it kind of goes to show you, like, even how stuff works. It says that can't be considered true brainwashing unless it's like aggressive, and some people disagree. But brainwashing is usually for the benefit of the person that's brainwashing. When God is telling us to renew his mind, he's not trying to dupe you. He's all for our benefit. What kind of brainwashing that is? That he's going to benefit you.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean?
That's crazy. And that's where I think people who have had bad experiences with an imperfect church, no church is perfect, right? So we're imperfect people and we hurt each other. And so we put the hurt that we've experienced with each other on God. And, yes, there are real people out there that have really bad intentions that are on the pulpit preaching that man, if you only knew your word, you would not even entertain the idea of what some of these dudes are talking about and the way they take advantage of people and so forth. But then there's the other part where there's not an intentional desire to take advantage of people, and you're you're amongst imperfect people that are also being transformed by the grace of God, and you so happen to get hurt, and now you're saying this God is whatever, but he's always been there. He's always, and in the midst of that, he's going to show you that, man, I've never left you. I've never forsaken you. It's never been about anything, right? It's been about saving you. It's been about loving you. I've sacrificed everything for you. Whereas the truth is the other way around when you have idols and when you have the other master where you sacrifice everything for it. The reverse is true with God. He sacrificed everything for you.
That's true.
He gives you all things. We have all things. And so, that's where in the book of Isaiah where he's like, I don't want your sacrifices. You're giving all these sacrifices. I don't want that. I don't want your sacrifices.
Sacrifice like real, like animal sacrifices.
Yeah, in those times, right? But regardless, it's like you're giving me an offering, whatever it is, right? You're giving me all this stuff.
Money or an animal or something.
That's not what I want. I don't want all that. Like, you want to give me all this stuff. You want to give me service. You want to do all this stuff. I want you. Come, my child. I want you. I want your purity. I want your love. I want you. Like,
Bible calls it living sacrifices.
Yeah, you want to give me all this stuff as if I need it. I'm God, baby. Like, I don't need none of that stuff. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, put all this stuff together and it still is not enough. You're always gonna fall short. In your best days, you're gonna fall short. So, wake up, right? Yeah. A discipline will be to give, but man, if that's hindering you from actually having a real relationship with me, seek me first, dude. Seek me first. And then we'll figure it out. You know what I'm saying? We'll figure out what the other things are, the works and all this stuff. We'll figure that out. But, it's just a strange dynamic that we have where you see that, and we talked about it in the Babylon episode, where that strange merger that can happen very easily, where the ideals of the world can be
within the church.
It kind of reminds me of like Daniel. And we even talk about because Nebuchadnezzar was a practitioner and a follower of that ancient religion, Babylon.
Yeah.
Like legit. And it's almost like this time where Daniel and his friends are living in that world apart from their home in with their people, and they're actually in the place of Babylon and like as slaves, and it's like the king is forcing them to do all this thing, forcing them to even change. It's like this brainwashing thing begins to occur. He says, I'm gonna give you new food. It's like, dude, we don't even eat that food. You gotta eat it. You know what I mean? So it's like brainwashing to the food level, kind of like what I was reading earlier. The bathroom, they control everything. And that's kind of like what Nebuchadnezzar was trying to do with these people. Is like, I'm gonna take you in to be my slaves. I want the smartest of smart, but I also want them to be docile, right? And then so these people were just there's some people that are just brainwashable. And him and his friends were like, listen, we're not going to bow down, to the point where this man gets so mad. It's funny because God gave him a favor. So he like kind of like liked him, Daniel and his friends. But then like through the whispering of his other Nebuchadnezzar, other advisors, he's like, yo, I'm going to set up this image. The moment that music gets played. It's like this brainwashing in a mass scale. This we talked about Babylon last week. It's like music is playing, and every time you hear that music, you're gonna worship it. And dude, this dude wouldn't do it. He was like, yo, you're not gonna pray no more. Psh. Open, no fear. This dude was gangster. No fear. It's like, yeah. And it's a point where it's like, yo, I'm gonna have to burn these guys in a furnace, get it as hot as possible. God, in his infinite wisdom, burned the people that were trying to make it hot.
That's crazy, yeah.
And then even with that, they didn't get burned. And there was one more in there that wasn't even one of the friends.
They were like, is
Remember
there
that?
four? Wait, there's four in there?
That man looks like the Son of Man. Who is that?
Who is that in there? What's going on?
And it's the reality is that God, when you're God's, he protects it. It's kind of like this quote that I never forget from Charles Stanley. He's like, obey God and leave all the consequences to him.
Dope.
That's the end of the quote. Obey God and leave all the consequences.
But the thing is with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in that scene, they say, we trust our God. If he saves us, praise God. If he doesn't save us, praise God. Either way, we're praising God. Like on some, it doesn't matter, son. Like, I'm here. I'm with God. He takes me. He allows it to happen. Cool. If he doesn't, that's what's up. It didn't matter to them. Like there was no prerequisite. There was no contingency in their worship to God. It was just God.
But it kind of reminds me of like, okay, we talked about Babylon last week. We live in that. We can America, wherever. This world is like that Babylon,
baby.
The exact same type of system of thought, right? So we have to be. There has to be a point, and like even you mentioned with the 6ix9ine, dude, myself too. We grew up in the same style of music in that same age bracket where I'm disposed to that type of music. So I'm listening to 6ix9ine. You sent it to me.
Yeah,
and I was like, yo, this is. And I was like, this is trash, and we're laughing about it.
He did, yeah.
And I was like, yo, let me listen to it. And I listened to Breakfast Club. I was like, okay, let me hear it. And I saw an interview. I kept listening to it. I'm like, yo, why is this the firest song I ever heard in my life?
Crazy,
like I was like,
dude,
call the doctor. Like in me, I was like, yo, it's the energy. I was like, wow, but it goes to show you that like.
I'm sorry, bro.
No. But I'm just saying. Yeah, it's all your fault. No.
It's all my fault.
No, but it goes to show you that we're predisposed. We're not exempt from brainwashing. Matter of fact, any person that's watched a Disney movie when they were 8 years old is brainwashed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like, we live in this Babylon, but that's why I feel like when it talks about what you were reading,
yeah,
it was saying renew your mind. But it didn't stop her. It's a conditional statement.
Yes.
So that you would be able to see and test and approve the will of God.
Yeah.
So in order to know God's will, you need to have that clear mind. But if we're living in the system and we accept it,
Yeah.
See, the thing about brainwashing that I was reading, it was talking about that brainwasher and the brainwashee, they come into an agreement. See, if a person is continually berating me, like if I had a wife, thank God I love my wife. She's like, I never met a woman that we barely even fight. We get like little arguments and it's like, I love you. You know what I mean?
Up?
So thank God,
Yeah.
right? But
it's early.
what would happen?
It's early.
It's early. You know what I mean? Shout out to 8 months. Hashtag 8 months.
Talk to me after 12 years.
Yeah, after 8 years, I'm like, yo, bro, you remember that? You remember that podcast 8 years ago?
Let me throw that podcast
It's
back
nothing,
on.
bro. It's nothing.
No.
Feel free. But I'm saying is that, like, what would happen if I had it goes to show you, like, as a man, right? You come confident, right, in life. You approach a female or whatever. You're like, hey, what's up? That woman continues to berate you. Oh, you ain't nothing. Be like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to dust that off my shoulder. Yeah, but the beration just keeps coming to the point where you're like,
man,
hold up. Like, the person, if he is weak and he accepts it, then the brainwasher, the agent, and the brainwashee, once the brainwashee accepts it. So the moment that I accept that, man, 6ix9ine's hot, and for a moment I'm like, yo, that's hot. But then I have to be like continually renewing my mind.
It's true.
So that I can see what God's will is, not
It's
mine.
true.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. 100%. 100%. I mean, there's so much more we could even talk. Like, I feel like I have 10 more things I want to dive into, but we're definitely over time, and I know the listener, hopefully they've enjoyed the episode. They got a lot out of it. So any final thoughts, G, anything you want to add?
No, not really, no. Man, y'all talked everything.
I feel like I want to just keep going, though. It's crazy.
Maybe we do a part 2, right?
Maybe we do part 2.
It's not unheard of.
Yeah, we'll see. So yeah, tune in. I know the Babylon episode, hopefully by the time you listen to this, I've fixed the issue that we had with the audio. I'm going to try to do that once we get off here. But if I'm not able to, just turn up the volume and hopefully you get a lot out of that episode. So no shouts out of the week, just diving right into the episode. Mad love goes out to Religion Man. He's playing the scenes in the background, showing us love and giving us support again. So blessings to him and his family and his and the new one that's on the way. But until then, check us out on SoundCloud. What else?
Instagram,
iTunes, YouTube, Facebook. Check us out on all those platforms. Check out G. What's your blog site?
geologyblog.com. It's about to get changed soon.
So
to
what?
just Lucius, because I'm mixing art and poetry together, and I'm gonna start selling my art. So
Yeah, man. And man, I don't know about you, but I saw some of his art.
Dope.
It's on point,
Yeah.
man.
Lucius A. Wolf. Can you spell that for the people listening, please?
LUCIUSA.Wolf. WULFE.
Lucius A. Wolf.
That's
Love
my
it.
quote unquote pen name.
It's his pen name. So if he's an author, check out his book. It's under that same pen name. His artwork, and then his blog, Geology. What is it again?
Geologyblog.com.
Geologyblog.com. And we love you guys. Signing out. Mike the Baptist.
J-Mo.
Geology.
See ya.